Bismillah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining us in our autism series. Today, Dr. Saima Ijaz will be talking about building cognitive skills in our children with autism spectrum disorder. Before we start the webinar, let me introduce Dr. Saima Ijaz to you. Dr. Saima Hussain Ijaz has a medical background with training in pediatrics. Her son received a diagnosis of autism in the late 90s, and when he didn't make any gains under the advice therapies, she left her medical career to understand and learn about the available and the research teaching methodologies for kids with autism and global developmental delays available in Canada and States to set up his home program. Saima has used AAPT to make skill-based individualized plans and implements them with the home team of autism spectrum disorder children of varying severity, with the primary focus on building relationships and developing basic communication, play literacy, and daily living skills by using the child's learning strengths and proactive behavior supports. The plan is to be transferred to the KG or school system to carry on. Saima has had voluntary involvement with the parent support groups, both in Pakistan and in BC, Canada from the early 2000s, and currently volunteers and works for the Family Support Institute of BC as a regional network coordinator for the Central and the North Vancouver Island. Welcome, Dr. Saima Ijaz.
Thank you, Nasia. So today we'll be discussing the most important topic under the series, and I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Okay. So I always share a few of my pictures, and it's the reason behind this is that I want to say it's not that being a doctor helped me so much as figuring out the steps. It was more as a mother. And I've always tried to share information and connect with mothers to say to them that if you are the ones who have the most vested interest in the well-being and the future of your child, and if there are delays in the diagnosis, in finding the right therapist, or setting up the program, then if you know what the steps are like, initial steps are like, you can initiate it. You can continue to go through the process because we do need help. We need therapists on our side and the medical, all the personnel on our side. But because it is such a paramount importance for us as families to see that our kid prospers and makes all those gains, and if you have the time and you have the willingness, then please adapt some of these ways how to work. So we always talk about how 1 in 59 kids, they are different in their language acquisition, in their social skills, they have sensory differences, and they have some repetitive actions. They want their daily routines to be pretty much the same. But what's really different in the practical sense for us is their learning difference. And I think for the families where kids learn to play, to communicate, to make the academic gains, they sort of come out of that depression and anxiety, and then they merge with the rest, and they have a very positive and a satisfied look. While those families who don't see their kids making those gains stay in that little space, and they always look for the cure. what is the cure? So that's the question that gets asked. What they're really asking is, what can you do for my child so he can learn to play and communicate? So if we can understand the basic difference, like a typically developing child, as soon as he's born and maybe even before birth, has the ability to process verbally. Like when someone is speaking, when they're singing, when they're tunes, little infant that picks it. And when he's able to, he'll babble, he'll try to respond. And that little actions that go along with the speech becomes part of the memory, and that's where the learning begins. While the kids on the autism spectrum, they process information visually. So they initiate that way because this other sensory component is not there for them. The information only reaches their short-term memory. So it seems like they made a gain, but they seem to forget it. So if we add with that a hands-on or kinesthetic way of learning, that leads it into the long-term memory and builds into it. And then from there, they can go on to learn all the skills you want to teach them. So what are the preliminary skills that or steps for us to take to build those skills for the child? We have dealt with the sensory explorations. This is when the child is not connecting. It helps them attend. Attention is first it is like transitory, then it becomes more focused and sustained. Play therapy, which is hands-on, that turns it into short and long-term memory. Then as the child is more tuned into what's happening around him, we can judge and we can teach them the cause and effects and sequences that happen around him and in the nature. Then comes the step of visual communication and language building. And directly from there, it can be connected to the reading, writing, and math. So I'm just going to very shortly go over this because we have a more total webinar that you can look at if you haven't already seen it. But the things that have worked for most of the kids on the spectrum, it's music, songs, telling them about the sounds, because we want it to be fun to begin with. It can start with animal sounds in the pretend play. Then it is sounds that are around them. So they are able to separate out and can tell what different sounds are, what thing is making it, and it also helps them desensitize some of the stuff that they are not comfortable with. And then just the nursery rhymes and songs that can come with subtitles. Kids love to play with sand and water. And then there are all sort of fidgets that could be tried. There could be tactile books, the felt books, and the vibratory sense is appealing too. Then there are stuff like lava lamps and spinning lights, books, bubbles, and looking in the mirror and pointing, labeling. Not to forget that all of them like deep pressure, vestibular, and proprioceptive, and that usually brings a smile and activates and stimulates the mind for learning. Now, jumping on to the play therapy, certain things that are easy to teach and get the attention are, I'll recommend families to get insert puzzles and have those around things that we will be using later for more learning. So shapes, numbers, letters, but it could be animals, it could be any insert puzzle. If the child doesn't have a pincer grip, you'll have to form your hand, place your hand around his hand and help him pick the piece and insert. So he, just because the stuff is there, he's not going to start playing on his own, but showing him and it'll make sense even without words. And he or she will try his best. So a part of this will be developing the eye-hand coordination. So where the hand has to go, part is around developing the pincer grip. So all those little things will also help in the motor development, fine motor development, helping him later pick up the pen and draw a line or label a word. So teaching sorting is easy. We can begin with, the picture is about teddy bears, which I usually use. So having a sorting dish like this and just show him like different colors go in different bins or in different compartments. You can even label it later as red, yellow, blue, green in bold. This shape sorter is again likable. It will fine tune further the eye-hand coordination. It is a little more complex than the insert puzzles. So bring it after the child is really good with the insert puzzles. Bead and stringing, beads work as fidgets too, but we don't want to give them small beads because some of the kids do mouthing and they can take it in the mouth, swallow, don't want to go there. So abacus is a good way. They just like to move the beads, but then teaching them how to string. So there are different ways of doing it. There are actually sticks with big beads that you can just push onto a stick, but then slowly get them when they get better with that, then a big, not a thread, but a thicker form, like what the child is capable of doing. You'll have to sort of individualize it. Going on, get a variety of blocks. Bristol blocks are very easy to put together. They also, the sensory feel is good. Big Lego blocks, mega Lego, even the magnetic blocks, because they stick together and don't fall, then bring up to the typical blocks. Pretend play has to be taught. So simple things that I like the parents to have is like a barn in a dollhouse. If you have a boy and you're not very comfortable with the dollhouse, you can use it with a Superman figure or a Spider-Man. So, let the child figure out, or not him, but you figure out what he might like. Because house is where we live and the pretend play, it works better with things like putting in the furniture, what goes in what room. You can put labels in there like a living room and a bedroom, and you can sort it out that way. You can have things to like some edible plastic stuff of food and utensils, and you can pretend like you're cooking or eating, or you're feeding it to the doll or the other figure, or even the animals. Animals are good for making the sounds and doing prepositions when you can do in the barn, out of the barn, on the barn. So all those little things come when you are working on the language, and just make it more natural to what your own home is like. Once you have some of this set up, now we have a whole webinar around the structuring and the routines. So you can definitely look at that if you haven't already. But I'll tell you that you can just draw hands to show the clock time. And then on one side, you can have the pictures of what you usually do around that time of the day, whether it's waking up, eating, brushing teeth, watching TV, things that a child is doing around that time. And on the others, the second space, you can have pictures of things that he has developed an interest of, whether it's water or sand play, it's listening to music or songs, it's playing with fidgets, playing with blocks or figures, or sorting. So you can have all that there and display it in the room that the child spends most of his daytime. So he's able to look at it. You'll also would point and draw his attention to some of the stuff over the day as you go, and it's time to do that thing. Sorting is such a huge skill for these kids, and there's a whole book about how do I teach this child, which is around how you can initiate the teaching by just helping them sort out into different bins. So sorting can happen in bins, or it can happen as picks on a board. So you can choose what's more easier for you. Simultaneously, while you are setting up the play, you can teach the child language, which is pictures with words, social skills, and teaching hygiene. So how they'll come is that you make little pictures with names or titles. So for the siblings, use the names. For mom and dad, just use the word that the child, you would like the child or the other children are calling you, whether it's mom, dad, or ami, abu, or whatever works for you in the home. Now, pictures of likable snacks and drinks. We want this child to be able to communicate. So let's not start from what you would like him to eat. Let's start with what he likes, so he can be attracted to those pictures and wants to be more of a, gives it more attention. Then his toys and likable things and favorite places and people. I'm going to actually go into more detail and tell you exactly how many words and how to go along and what comes first and what comes later. Social skills can be developed while you're doing that interactive play therapy. So, you can just do a greeting, like every time you sit down to play, you can just say hi, or what is it that you like to say, even if it's a fist bump or a high five. It doesn't have to be a word. It can be a gesture. And you can gently tell them into turn taking. Turn taking is also a way of how you do something, which is a model for the child to look at, and then help him to do the same thing. And then you can say, my turn and your turn. So my turn is when I'm doing it, and your turn when you're helping him do that. And as the child, you can see that he seems to have enough and probably would like to do some of his own thing or have free time. Although he doesn't has the word to say that yet, you can just have a card saying free time and then put it there and then just leave. So if you do it in the regular basis with each play therapy, this child will get the idea that, when we get together, we sort of greet, we take turns, and each one of us can sort of say, that's it, I'm good for now. And that's when we end that session too. Teaching hygiene is very important. We always, as moms, we are teaching them to wash hands or telling them, helping them brush teeth, toilet training them. So now doing that with a scripted, with like a picture schedule, with the one word or a couple of words with that, having it in the spot where you usually do that, and doing the activity hand over hand of washing hands and brushing teeth. It's one thing that happens around this time is that as the child's parents have waited for a while to start using words or saying words, as soon as he starts doing that, it's the most beautiful feeling for the parent to hear the child start talking and playing. But sometimes we push a lot of words, and that has happened in the therapies that I've watched too. So the circle is where this child is and his word is. Like what's important, what are the things that matter to him? Some of the pecs are always saying that, and the people are the people that he sees. So we have to visualize his word from his angle and then work on the vocabulary with labeled pictures. Now, label pictures of family members, the immediate ones. We're not talking about the extended, the ones who live in home with, even if it's 3 or it's 6. Want to include the pet? Definitely you can do that. Then the liked foods and drinks, 5 toys, the ones that the child wants to spend time with or is playing or using in the in the play therapy, if you can see that these are the 5 that he's more attracted to, or 5 things that he likes to carry around with him, or it just gives him a sense. So what's important for him, that's what we're looking at. 5 body parts, we can pick the ones. If you're saying wash hands, if you're saying brush teeth, those could be the 2 ones. If then eyes, ears, you can pick what other 5 parts that you would like him to know about. That'll be very functional when you are sort of giving an instruction or talking to him. Then 5 animals and figures and commonly used things. Once the child, and bring it in close to a 5, work on it. Once the child knows that, move on to the next one. So don't start with a whole lot of pictures and words. Once he's mastered that and showing you like using it, then you can sort of build on that. Then 5 things from each of the rooms that he spends times in and he uses. And 5 things in the yard, backyard or the front yard where he goes out and maybe spends some time to play. 5 places that he visits, whether it's a kindergarten, it's school, it's a playground, it's aunt or uncle's house or grandparents' house. So those 5 places, and 5 of the folks that are important at this point. It could be the therapists that are working along at your home, or it could be the people that you visit. Excuse me. So the preposition, then we are going to be very discreet about, what other words are required. Just simple, like on, in, at, on, in, and out. If you begin with that and then under, verbs are the ones that are using to teach him skills. And then during the pretend play, then you can also, you say, oh, let's time to eat. And there's like a room that you've labeled as a dining room, and the little figure goes in there, and then you pretend to eat there, or pick up a cup and say, drink, sit down on the chair. So those are the very common verbs that actions that we do all the time. And then we can bring it in the pretend play. And opposites are easier for the child because some are visually very different. They are opposite, so they strike They are more easily understandable. Like if we talk about day and night, big and little. So everything has to be built. Even with this, which is like 50, 60 words, you can see a difference even with 5 words. But around this time, child becomes really confident. Now, if he is a speaker, he has the ability to verbalize, he'll be doing that. If not, we've already providing him with a word base. So we already working on another direction for him, and we continue to work on his oral motor skills. So we're not leaving anything unattended, whether the child, whatever his abilities and capabilities are. At this point, we can also try making a simple worksheet. Like the child would have developed a pencil grip. So let's see if we can color or draw a line. So you can pick any of the pictures. I choose mouth and hand picture. And then I place another one on the other side, and hand over hand, let him connect the two. So it's not different than matching, but it has this component where you are developing those early fine motor where he's able to draw a line. Now, once he's done that, this is the other neat thing that you can do. You just switch it with a word. You can also alter once. So, we're trying to help him connect the picture with the word. You can say the word. You can also alter. So once he's mastered that and he knows what it is, let's check him out by altering the position of mouth and hand and see if he'll follow the line he'll slant the line to connect with the other dot this time. No pressure, just check it out, just so you know if this child is really understood the meaning, and now is he able to connect it or not. We'll come back to it again. So with the stringing, when the simple stringing has become easy, we can introduce patterns in there. So you can have different colors that he can string. So red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow. You do a little bit of that and then guide him to alternate the beads that way. Try it with a 3-pattern sequence. Or you can have what we see here, different shapes in there. But go again, build it gradually. Bring it with the most obvious little change, and then increase it. And do not try of stringing more than 5 to 10. We're just checking it. We don't want to tire out the child either. Another toy, a couple of other things that I've seen most of the kids connect with is the pin art with this colored, where light up bright is another word used for it. So you can, there is a sort of template which can help the child put in the pins and then it lights up. And then gears, how you put that, it is also sort of blocks for Lego. And you can place it in a way that they become interlocking and the whole thing moves. And it gives them a lot of sensory pleasure and encourages them to try it out. Art and creativity. Oh, before I go there, I want to say that these patterns that we are teaching, it can lead to so many things as this child grows. The children are able to see patterns in the numbers, and those are what I call the super skills that the ASD kids have. They love to construct things and build. They have very creative minds. So if we give them these bases, where it'll go later would surprise you. But it's important to expose them bring it to their attention and help build the initial steps for them. Art and creativity, if the child hasn't shown any interest in drawing, just have a board and markers. Encourage them to do whatever they like to do. If the pencil grip is not at that stage yet, then encourage them for finger painting. It's a little messy, but it's very it's a wonderful, wonderful skill for the kids to have, and it leads to creativity again. Now we'll tackle anything around numbers. Many kids have, they can wrote, they can tell numbers up to 100, but if they don't have a value assigned to the number, they will not make any gains in math. So it's important to teach them that. There are cards available everywhere. What I like is this card where this child is actually putting objects. One has one dot, and then you put an object on that, and then two. And once they've done that, you can fade out the dots, and the child will have use of his memory. He'll remember that what one means one peg, and three, the number three means three. That takes him all the way to initiating the adding and subtraction later. Monthly calendars where you can start putting down what's different on each day. You can just begin with Saturday, Sunday, no school or home, and other days at school. And then one other thing that could be specific for that, or say 1 day a week. And then so they get an idea that it's getting marked there, and there are 2 days to it, or 2 sleeps till I get something. So sense of monthly calendar, which is easily carried out into the school. Clock and time, I showed you how to set that daily schedule for them with the clock. But you can also use the hands and show him, just say 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, time for this, time for that. And just make it a routine in your every single day. Now coming to the literacy skills that parents are really interested if that could be done. We want the child not just to read, but read with comprehension. So because a typical kid already has the comprehension and he's learning to read. His reading is different than the child with autism, where we are helping him understand what does a word mean. And so it sometimes starts as sight words rather than phonetics. So whichever approach, phonetics are going to be taught in the school anyways. We can work as sight words. Then fill in the blank sheets, worksheets can work so well. You can see what the child has actually understood if he can put in, fill in those blanks. He can write, type, or he can have labeled words provided to him, which he can just insert on those blanks. And there are fonts available. There are lots of programs available to teach around simple typing and printing. Kids, I think this is one thing that you don't have to worry too much is typing, because they do learn. Kids are good with devices, and they do learn to do that, but it's usually one finger typing. And as long as they are able to communicate by doing that, I really don't have a problem. Now we can start bringing in sheets. We can actually show them. We can have 2 sheets where I'll sit and draw a line and get him to focus on a body part and draw a line. And then I can give one to him and see what he can do, but be ready to help him out to initiate it. And then to go through the whole of it if it's needed. And the next day you try again with another sheet. You can start with less labels, just with the working on the face, and then the rest follow with the rest of the body later. When you have labeled and the child has some sort of a receptive comprehension of these words, you can use them when he's having a bath. You can encourage them to start washing the body parts as you label. Or like begin with just labeling and looking at the mirror. Or when you're having like, my nose, your nose, you can do this during the play therapy. But during a bubble bath or during a shower, you can encourage them to take a little bit of a self-care in there using these. So when we talk about a social narrative or a social story, it is nothing more than building it at a level of a child's comprehension of what is it that we want to do and what is it that we would like him to do. So the different routine sequences that we did in the last webinar, you can use that as a social narrative. You can, for the child who's able to communicate, he's verbal, he likes to use more words, have it explained in the other story where, you're talking about when I go to a grocery store, I can't just pick up an item and put it in the cart. I have to ask, then I can take it, then we pay for it, and then we go home. So little steps. We can work with picture sequencing. Again, it's the same concept, but now you can, in the cards, if it's a boy, you can just write underwear, pants, shirt, socks. If it's a girl, you'll need another sequence. But it's like in helping them see the order of things, how to do it, but do it with the labeled pictures. If this is a snack or a lunch that the child likes, jam on the toast, this is a good sequence. If this is not what you do, then it's not. So always see that it's around what you do at home or what the child sees in nature. Then you can find sequence cards everywhere. Sometimes they come with a label, sometimes not. If the label's too long, big for you, you can just, put another piece of paper and write, just stick it there and just write on that egg, a crack, breaking up, chick. So just few words, but then you can put in number 1, 2, 3, 4 on a piece of paper and help the child put the cards in a sequence. Again, like with the second one, what you can do is dirty dishes in the sink, clean dishes on the rack. Just simple words. Social story can also be done in where you're telling the child how you can ask something, how to ask questions. It's hard for them to initiate conversation. This is more for the verbal children. So, then if they see it in a written format, they just get it. And that's all about the visual processing ability that they have. You might have told them, like, you look at this and I've told him this 100 times that you have to ask. Do not tell them, write it down, let them read it with them, and it just internalizes it for them. And like I said, early introduction, first to the personal stories and narratives. No time is like, you can't do it early enough. If the child is 1, start then. If you are worried he's got a diagnosis now that he's 4 or 5, start then. If you have a school going child and you haven't done those steps, he's 16 now, try it then. So there is no age. And as soon as you can do, but whenever you find it and you think it hasn't been done. Another early introduction to the kids is that of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. They can do wonders in those fields because of their creative minds. It just has to be narrated in a way that it makes sense to them. Like even when the sequence around the chick, you can do a chick's life cycle, and that is science. If you're doing gardening, if you're cooking something, you do a little story around that. You tell him the stages, how the plant grows, that's science. Everything that's happening around us, that is science. Technology, I don't think I have to say that. Each and every parent would say that even if they haven't learned much, they still know how to work their TV, and they know what the remote is all about. And so technology is friendly to them. Lots of apps available that helps them with the program building too. But it doesn't replace the play therapy, because that gives them hand-on. Everything has its place, and that's important to know. Engineering and mathematics, I just gave you just a little vision of block building and gears and interlocking and how they see the patterns in the number value. If you give them those bases and they actively can process, they have stories around the stuff that they have to learn about. This in the school, they through the special ed or the other EAs or the staff that's there, it's made it's been conveyed to them that use more of the visual format, and this sort of stories help him process. They'll take the advice. They have lots that they do on their own, but sometimes they need advice how you personalize stuff. So that is always helpful. Just some quick examples in the end around some of the things you can taught, even if it's a story about a COVID-19 shot or going to get a service card done. You can, a story about a hot day that you're experiencing, following it with a fill in the blank sort of sheet to sort of get an idea of how much of the child has really retained and can express it visually. And another one that parents usually ask about, and I'll definitely going to talk about it more in detail in our next conversation, which is going to be around complex behaviors. So the child knows what he can do, what she can do when you feel you're not feeling good. So sort of have words for the feelings and what to do about it, which brings us to the whole idea of self-care and self-management. So I'll end it here by saying that we like the intervention to be early on, but it's like Dr. Temple Grandin says, it's never too late to expand the mind of a person on the autism spectrum. So just because the child is now a teenager, or even if he's an adult, doesn't mean that he can't learn or he wouldn't appreciate stuff being used this way. So yeah, on that, I'm open if there are any questions. I'm going to stop sharing.
Sure. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I have a few questions. The first question is, I have been trying to teach my 10-year-old daughter to brush her teeth for years, and it still hasn't happened. What should I do?
Uh, well, it's to look at how you have been teaching her. Have you been using any visuals? And it's a very common routine that you can find in visuals on the Google. Just search it. You'll find a number of those. See the one that clicks better for you. Have that placed where the child is brushing teeth. And then there could be a number of issues because mouth is a very sensory area. Is it sound? Is it the bristle of the brush that are too strong for her sensitive gums? Is it the taste of the toothpaste? Is it, so you know, the list can go on. So if the child is verbal and you can actually ask and he can communicate, that would be a really great start. If he's not, then it'll be, your guess would be better than mine. Think at a time then she was pretty okay, and maybe a toothpaste was changed because she's not a kid anymore, and maybe she just doesn't like that taste. Go back to using the same kid toothpaste. Fix the time of the toothbrush so she knows it is an important thing. It'll be done 8 o'clock every morning, 10 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night every evening. You can focus on just 30 seconds in the beginning. And once that's good, then you can increase the time. Switch to, is it a mechanical, or is it an electric toothbrush? Sometimes the vibration of the electric toothbrush is liked by the child. So although the sound is more, but they like that. And it does a cleaning better too. So just try switching. If the problem came because you started using the electric, go back to the manual one. So it'll be a bit of a trial to figure out what the actual reason is. And then, for after she's comfortable with the 30-second part, or maybe it is that she's not brushing and you have to brush. So I never came to that point. So in that case, do hand over hand. Just don't give her verbal instructions. Manually, like move her hand with your hand on top and slowly reduce your grip and see that she's gripping it and she's doing it on her own. So just provide as much force or the maneuvering as is needed and fade it out. Always remember to compliment her after it's done. And that goes a long way too.
Thank you very
much. Out. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is, my son can speak or point. How will he learn to tell me what he wants?
Even if he is not saying the words or pointing, he might still be communicating in another way. And I wonder, it is different for each child. So some kids just like to push you to the place where you can see that thing that they want. Sometimes they go approach that place themselves and just keep looking. This is called they're trying to make that visual association. So they just looking instead of pointing. So I used to follow my child's gaze to see what is it that he's looking at. And then I'll, sometimes if it's a cereal box on the top of the fridge, so I'll pick it up, and if I see that his gaze has moved and bring it close to my face, and he starts looking at my eyes, and I'll go, yeah, like this, and give it to him. So it is helping him make that connection too, that yes, you're looking at that, but you have to look at me too. So you can develop that connection of eye association right there. You can, even if he's pushing or pulling, we gently teach him. And then I also remember my child, he was not even 2 feet, I would say, and something right up there. And he's trying to, it's almost like he can do it. He's not going to ask or say anything. And he doesn't realize that he can't reach. He needs someone's help. So all those little signs are communication. We just have to give them our direction. And then what I did was, I think my first step used to be on the cereal boxes on the side, there's that small picture of the same cereal. So just cut it out and just put it out there. So help him to pick it up and give it to you because the picture is the same. So building it, and all these, the whole series has been around how do we help the child build communication and get him to learn. So I hope that you'll find more ideas as you go through it.
Thank you very much. My child does things his way, and correcting him makes him withdraw and he stops trying.
So when we are correcting the child verbally, which is no fault of ours, that's how we were corrected. That's how we taught our other kids. So because it doesn't make sense to the child, all he gets is that you're not happy. Whatever I'm doing, you're not happy. And it's his natural reaction to that. So instead of telling him, show him the correct way by doing it for him. And then modeling, like, I wonder what is it, or if I'm just going to assume that maybe he's trying to eat, and instead of using a spoon or a fork, he's hand picking, and you're telling him, use the spoon, use the fork, and it's upsetting for you, it's upsetting for him. So maybe he doesn't has that pincer grip. So hand over hand, show him how to use it. And then, and actually, because the kids don't use their joints that much, even the turning of the grip, like how it's when you're picking it up and then turning it around to eat it, the whole maneuver, help him through that. Do it very gently. So he'll learn and always end up appreciating, even if you ended up doing most of it, you still say, good try, we'll try again. So.
Thank you. Last question that we have is, will my son be able to learn like other kids in class?
In some ways, he will have his own way of learning always. In some ways, in some areas, he'll do better. In some ways, he'll need support and he'll need different materials. In the school systems, there are a lot of supports available, whether it's in the form of a educational assistant or use of online books or worksheets. And so there's a whole special ed department that just works for that. But some individualization is always required for each child. And that requires the thought process, both as a parent and as a teacher as well. So having that communication in there and always telling them what he can do at home and what has worked at home if you've tried something. Then there are lots of apps. Technically, we are advanced so much. There are online reading books and worksheets available. So things have been adapted so well. So the way it's done could be different, but definitely he'll be able to read, write, and achieve his academic goals.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saima Ejaz. Just a little reminder to our friends and members. If you like the to watch the recording of today's session and the previous Autism Awareness Series webinars, along with the other discussions that we've had, you can check the webinar selection of website, and also in the chat today, you can also see the link to our YouTube channel. So thank you very much, and looking forward to another extremely informative webinar with you next month.
Thank you.
So much for having the time.
Thank you very much. Khuda Hafiz.